Hello and welcome to the Worldwide Wolves podcast, a new podcast branching off of, if you're subscribed to this and you're seeing it in your subscription feed, you're like, what is this? It used to be the Timberwolves Daily YouTube channel. So, hello, we're here with Jake Painting, who hosts the Howls and Growls YouTube channel. It's my first time doing any Timberwolves YouTube in like 2 years. So, we're going to go into this. We're going to have fun with it, but it's the Worldwide Wolves podcast because, Jake, where are you coming to us from?
Cooper, I am in Melbourne, Australia, as I always am, as you can probably tell from the accent, and anyone who watches any of my content can probably tell from the accent. So we are worldwide. You're about to move across the country, so
Yeah.
you're countrywide at the moment.
Right.
And yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here with you, man. We haven't spoke. I mean, me and you have spoke, but we haven't spoke on a camera on a podcast for a long time. So I'm really excited. There's not enough podcasts in the world, so I thought we needed to add another one into the atmosphere here.
Yeah, not enough Timberwolves podcast hosted by two white guys. It should be a blast. They needed another. No, it's good. I am currently in Duluth, but in 3 days I will be in Pittsburgh, and that's where I will be living. And as of right now, I have nothing behind me except a broken wall. That will eventually change. It will get a little bit cooler, but today that's what we're rocking with. But enough of that. We're going to talk some Timberwolves stuff, most notably the NBA draft, which just happened a couple days ago, over 2 days, which is new, and I don't like it, but whatever.
I don't like it either. A lot of people do like it. I want all
do
of
a
my
lot of
draft
people
content.
I've seen very few people that actually do
Really,
like it.
I've seen a lot of people saying. I mean, I think the logic here is that the second rounders get their moment in the sun,
I guess,
which is a good thing. But selfishly, I want it all to be done at once. I don't want to have to wake up the next day and watch a whole second round.
Yeah, I'll say my opinion was fortified maybe like around pick 45 because at least the second round, the build up all day was like they're shopping pick 31, whoever's the highest bidder, and it's just like, all right, after a day's 24 hours wait, they're getting a couple of second round picks that are whatever in like 2031 or it's like all right, and then they trade that one for cash anyway. So
what are your thoughts on that? Let's start there
with
because
that.
we are
Okay.
going to start with the draft. I guess we'll go back to front here. What was your thoughts on just not taking pick 31, not taking pick 36? They got the 2 second rounders, and then they got cash considerations and moved back to 45. Like, I saw some outrage online. I don't think it's a huge deal, but what was your thoughts kind of on that?
I think it's fun to get a little fake outraged over it, but at the end of the day, I also think there's a lot more that went into that than just like we don't want to pick a player. A lot of roster construction, salary slot, agent stuff that's just like kind of annoyingly complicated, and that's part of why maybe the 2-day thing is better because the second round is just kind of a mess. But I didn't really care. There wasn't a guy in the second round that I was itching for the Wolves to get. There wasn't a guy that would have been able to play this year whatsoever with the way the Wolves roster looks. So
yeah,
I had no real problem with it. And with them taking a project center that's 7'4".
Sorry, a project Australian centre.
That's why we had to start
not skip
here.
the important part. We are the Worldwide Wolves, and I think Tim Connolly got word that we were making this podcast, and he thought, guys, let's draft an Aussie and a French dude.
Yes. Okay. No, you're right. So those are my basic thoughts. My basic thoughts summed up in one sentence are I don't have a really hot take or anything about it. It is what it is. And I guess I get what they're doing after, 24 hours later. You have anything on it other than
I think I'm pretty much the same. Like, I agree that when you see cash considerations just in general, I think it is a bit deflating because you kind of expect to maybe get a future asset, even if it's a bad future asset. I think that is something that you like to see your team acquire, especially a team like the Wolves who are pretty short on future assets. But at the end of the day, pick 36, pick 45, like I did a lot of draft stuff. I mean, throughout the year, I kind of kept tabs on everyone and had a lot of notes and a lot of film already down. And then obviously when the season ended, I really ramped it up. And it was a pretty flat draft. Like the NIL stuff, there's a lot of kids going back to college who would have been drafted in that 30 to 50 range and who are good players, but they're making a lot of money now going to college. And improving their draft stock for the next season. So maybe they could be first round picks and make a first round pick salary. So once you got out of that first round, it really was a pretty bad draft. Obviously, there's guys that I like, there's guys that other people like. Rasheer Fleming was a name that was going around a lot. I really liked Cam Jones from Marquette, but it's not. They're not players who are going to alter this franchise, especially where they are right now. Back-to-back Western Conference Finals. A team that already couldn't get their rookies on the floor, first round picks, mid lottery picks couldn't really get on the floor. So
yeah,
I don't think that's a huge deal. They still got their guy at 17. And I think that Tim Conley and his team were pretty happy with that.
I agree. So we should move on to that guy that they took in the first round, unless you have any other big second round takes.
No, I have no second round takes ever again.
Yes, 365 days from now. But anyways, yes, first round. And I'm going to hope I say I've heard it a lot of times. Jon Berenjay.
I think that's it. I think that's at least the, Americanized. I'm sure there's a Frenchy kind of way to say it that neither of us can pronounce, but Johan Berenjay. Yes. I did a 9-minute video on it, and it was nerve-wracking trying to say that name 16 different times.
Yes. Okay. Well, I want you to actually start on this one because I have just like a more broad take on like the type of player. So I guess just your thoughts on the actual player that they took overall. And you did a 9-minute video, by the way, Howls and Growls YouTube channel. Everyone check that out. But
yes.
Your thoughts?
Plug.
Yes.
I've been keeping tabs on a lot of guys. He was one who I had less film on. Obviously, it's harder to watch the ABA, which is in Slovenia, I think. He didn't play in France, but definitely in Europe. And I mean, like you've probably heard everyone say, if you've listened to other Wolves podcasts, if you're around this stuff, he's super raw. And I think that they are okay with him being super raw because the raw tools that he has are just kind of insane. Like offensively, he's a dunk, catch lobs, catch on the roll, finish at the rim, doesn't shoot well, doesn't shoot free throws well. Like he is that archetype of player that is a little bit less in vogue these days. Your DeAndre Jordans and Clint Capellas and Rudy Gobert, obviously. But that isn't why he's drafted in the first round. He's drafted in the first round because he's an insanely talented defender already. He's an insanely talented defender. And obviously at 18 years old, only played basketball for 4 years, one would expect that he's going to hone those defensive kind of tools that he has and become, hopefully, you're looking at realistic situations, ideal situations, and low floor situations with these draft prospects. And his ideal situation is like a legitimately insanely good defender in the NBA because he's massive, his arms are massive, he glides across the court. Like this isn't, it's easy to compare him to Rudy Gobert because they are that same kind of archetype of player. And the odds that he's ever as good as Rudy Gobert has been defensively is very low for any player in the world coming out of college or, an international league. But the way he moves across the court is the polar opposite to Rudy, especially the Rudy that we see in Minnesota, who's a little bit older. It feels like his feet don't touch the ground. Like he's kind of just gliding across the court. He's super agile. He feels like a big wing, kind of a Jaden McDaniels kind of player who can cover ground really fast. But obviously in more of a big man kind of way. Super versatile defensively, which is to me the absolute first thing on the whiteboard when you're talking about the excitement factor with this player is that he's really willing to get out above the screen. He switched constantly. His team, Seta Vita Olympia, were very happy to switch him onto guards, and he was very happy to just eviscerate them in isolation situations. So to me, that's the top of the whiteboard. Like this is a guy who's a modern NBA defender, and I feel like probably a modern NBA defender already, even if he was, he'd struggle defensively because he's so young in the NBA and there's so many great athletes in the NBA. But already, if you put him into a game, I think you'd be able to play multiple schemes with him. And I think that takes away some of the dinosauriness of a player who can't shoot the ball, because he's just so versatile defensively. He covers so much ground. The amount of possessions where he's out 2 feet above the screen and then blocking a shot at the rim 2 seconds later is just kind of insane to watch. So to me, that's the cliff notes on him. Is he's really raw offensively, really raw defensively, but already defensively so much more advanced and so much more versatile than a lot of people his size and his age.
Yeah. And when it first came out, I mean, the defensive stuff was reported. The offensive side of the ball was obviously more of a concern, but the big note was that he catches, and I quote, anything that comes his way, pretty much, which is exciting for us Wolves fans that have been
The
watching.
funny thing about that is
Rudy,
I went back and so I have a few of his full games saved on my computer, and I went back and the first 3 possessions that he dropped an easy pass, and I was like, oh no, guys, it's happening again.
So who's lying to us then? Is it just
after that, I don't think he dropped
Okay.
a single pass, and he's like, his lob finishing is insane. Like he jumps over dudes, but he's also quite coordinated in catching on the short roll, which is a really big problem for Rudy, and just in general, he feels like he was a soccer player, and he feels like that. Like he kind of has that hand-eye coordination. He has that movement skills that you expect from someone who plays in a sport where you do have to do a lot of running and zigging and zagging. It does feel like that, and I think the catching of the ball or just hand-eye coordination plays into that as well.
Cool. Yeah, no, I like it. I mean, it's to me the most interesting part about the draft pick because we're going to see this guy in not this year, maybe not even next year, like in a actual role. He'll get Luka Garza minutes here and there, but no offense, Luka Garza. But in like 3 years, we'll really start to hopefully see this guy and he'll really start to come into himself. But I guess what I want to sort of get into is just why that's so interesting and why that's, I don't know, so important. Just the archetype of player at his age and position, I think, is extremely interesting. So, you go into this and you're looking at a win now team, right? A team that has made the Final Four the last 2 years. And maybe you're thinking they draft another guy around Terrence Shannon Jr.'s age, closer to 23, 24. Hell, even a guy closer to Rob Dillingham's age, like 20 years old. But instead they take this project, which to me, more than anything, really signifies the confidence they have in their rotation guys right now. And even with Nickeil Alexander-Walker most likely gone, it shows, I think, they have the utmost confidence in Jalen Clark, Terrence Shannon Jr., maybe even Rob Dillingham. It could also mean there's a big trade coming we have no idea about. But for sure, just on those 3 guys, I guess, in the era we're in, was it surprising to you at all that the Wolves opted for a long-term project, considering they might need win now guys to just take that final step? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think either path would have shocked me. Either going for that older guy or sticking with a young guy. Obviously, they went with this super young guy, which is obviously a really long-term play. I think what they wanted is someone who fits with the next timeline, the mold of that next timeline, the mold of the modern NBA. And to me, I think that's the most interesting thing about this is that he is. Obviously, like you said, he's not going to play next season. He might not play the season after that. But when you group these guys together who feel like they're not on the Mike Conley, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert kind of timeline, but they are on the Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels timeline, I think that makes more sense in my head as to why they picked a player like this. Super athletic, just like Terrence Shannon Jr., just like Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Jalen Clark is athletic in his own way. Rob Dillingham is super athletic. That's one thing that I'm tangenting here, but that is one thing that I feel like is a little underrated with Rob is that athleticism isn't just jumping, and hitting your head on the backboard. Like being able to get downhill and move side to side with the ball, and Rob can jump higher than a lot of dudes who are 6 foot flat. So I think when you group these kind of players together, you get this super athletic young core. Leonard Miller, you can put in that as well, and guys who feel like modern NBA players. And I don't think the Wolves feel very modern right now, and that is fine because it's been working. It's not really a knock on the team building. It's just that this is the current iteration. We're a bit slower. We're a bit more methodical. We play in the half court. And then you have these young guys kind of bubbling beneath, and not all of them are going to work out. And more players are going to be added to this core before we get to see it, in real life. But right now, I think Tim Conley and Matt Lloyd and those guys in the front office, they're sitting in that back room and saying, the next version of the Timberwolves is going to be fast. It's going to be long. It's going to dunk on dudes. It's going to run in transition. And we're going to insulate Anthony Edwards with that type of archetype. And if that's what they're thinking in that back room, then Berenger is perfect for that. Like he isn't modern again in the way that he's going to shoot 5 threes a game, but he fits that type of, we're going to run, we're going to jump, we're going to dunk, we're going to block shots, we're going to be almost like, I hate doing this because we do it every year, but we are going to be Indiana Pacers like in the way that we just push pace, and that's how we win games. So I think they could have said, like, let's go get, Nate Clifford, who's a 22, 23-year-old, pretty ready, I think, to play NBA right away. Fits in that more slower kind of methodical half court where he can dribble, pass, shoot. But is that guy going to fit in 5 years when they do have all these athletes, when Terrence Shannon Jr. is starting games, or when Rob Dillingham's the point guard and he's pushing pace all the time? So yeah, I think they kind of looked at themselves and said, this guy's not going to play next season. Whoever we draft isn't going to be the guy who takes us from the Western Conference Finals to a championship. So let's draft for that next era, and let's get someone who fits in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and I'm on board with most of that for the most part. The thing to me, you mentioned the timelines. To me, there's almost like a third timeline forming. Like there's currently the Cat, Gobert, Conley era. Cat's obviously gone, but just still that we're still in that era of the older guys where, and by the way, at the top of this is Anthony Edwards, and there's the 3 timelines. It's Anthony Edwards, and then he's in all of them. But it's the Anthony Edwards, but he's still coming up behind Gobert, Towns, all these Conley and guys like that. But in 1 to 2 years, that's going to phase out, and it's going to be Anthony Edwards smack dab. Like he's the leader, he's the everything. Right now, he pretty much is, but it's going to progress. And then it'll be, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid. Terrence Shannon Jr. is an old guy, so you can throw him in there. And by old, I mean 24, but you can throw him in that sort of era. And it seems like they're almost building out this third window, which is the Rob Dillingham, the Berenger. And it's an interesting game that they're trying to balance of like longevity for not just 2 years, but like 5 years, 10 years. It's a safe game, I think, but it's also, I do wonder at some point kind of, do you at some point have to go all in for for one of these current windows kind of? And I think they have sort of in this Gobert one, but as they're just building out with this team, I do wonder, is there sort of a move coming in the next year or two that throws almost all or a lot of your young assets and just says, we're going all in on the Ant, Jaden, Naz type era. So interested in the Rob, Berenger type of window they're building out. But part of me also wonders, could that just totally be like thrown away in a trade and then they just kind of start that over in a year or two in the draft? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And I think the most famous example of this is Golden State, who tried to balance those two railroad tracks with Curry and Clay and Draymond. And then they got that really high pick. They wasted it on Wiseman. They had Kuminga. And they were really openly talking about 2 timelines. And it's a dangerous game, like you said, because could Steph Curry have won 1 or 2 more rings if they trade that number 2 pick and other young assets for another star or for another really great role player who can help them? So I do think it's fraught with danger trying to handle multiple timelines at once, I think. Because if this era ends with 2 Western Conference Finals and you go into the next era and Rob's not as good as we hope, or Berenger never works out, then all of a sudden you're thinking, man, we probably should have traded these guys when they were young, really booming assets. to put someone else next to Anthony Edwards at that time where we were a great team and Gobert was still in his, post prime, but not completely fallen off yet. Mike Conley was still a helpful player, and Jaden was the perfect kind of glue guy around all that. Like, could we have gotten someone else for our young assets? And I think I do think they've obviously thought that because they tried to get Kevin Durant, and Rob would have been in that trade, at least one of Gobert or Randall, probably this pick 17. Like, I think that was their move. And if that was their move a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I'm guessing they're still ready to make that move, but you can't just make it. Like they said,
Right. Yeah.
It's not the kind of asset haul that you can just dangle in front of any team and try and tempt them, because it's still not 4 first-round picks, and that's not what Orlando gave up for Desmond Bane. So
I mean, yeah, the most valuable part of Julius or Rudy is that they can match salary. It's not like the Utah Jazz are going, we'd love to have Julius Randle to be our, it's not like that's pushing them over the edge. So
yeah.
But
so I agree with you. I think that it's dangerous. Like, and that doesn't mean it's wrong or that it won't work. It just means that you are kind of tiptoeing on this tightrope. And when you have a star player, a superstar player, Anthony Edwards or otherwise, you are on a tightrope constantly, because it's not. It's easy to be a GM when Zach LaVine. I mean, it's not easy ever, but when Zach LaVine and Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns are all 20 years old. Like, you're going to win 24 games next season. It takes away some of that pressure. But when Anthony Edwards wants to win championships, and that the odds of ever drafting an Anthony Edwards again are extremely low, you're on that tightrope, and you're stuck on that tightrope until you win a championship, kind of. And even after that, like, look at the Bucks, they're still on that tightrope, and they're falling off that tightrope right now, and they already got that ring. So it's just the way it is. It's high stakes when you have a superstar, and I think this team is trying to tiptoe this weird timeline where, like you said, like, it's perfectly that Ant's at the top of the pyramid, and then there's like these weird little pyramids coming off it. So
we should say that the other path, but like the one where you include all these assets and make the big move, that is probably more dangerous. Like, we're calling this, I'm calling this dangerous. This is going to make no sense. I'm calling this dangerous because it's the safe path. Like, it's safely going to get you to 46 to 50 wins every year. You're going to win a playoff series or two, but you just might never make that final leap. The other path, where you make the big move, is dangerous because it's dangerous. I know that makes sense, but
to use that Bucks example, like, they did it with Drew Holiday, and they got to the mountaintop, and that is exactly what you want. But the reason why you're saying it's dangerous is because there's another side of that mountain, and it's a free fall, and that's, the Bucks are in that free fall right now. And
look at the Suns, man. They got right to the finals, and they said Kevin Durant. And I'm not gonna lie, I wanted the Wolves to say Kevin Durant, but the Suns did it.
And the problem is, then they said Bradley Beal.
Right? Yes, it wasn't a. Yeah, I think it was a Beal. Yes. But that's the danger of it for sure.
And I think with a team like the Timberwolves, a franchise like the Timberwolves, you are weighing up. Do we want to just push all of these chips in the middle? Do we want to try and it's still a huge gamble. Like, do we want to try and get this ring for Anthony Edwards right now, or do we want to build something that feels more sustainable over a long term, but might not ever be at that high peak that if you got a Kevin Durant or you got some other star in for all of your assets? So it's hard to analyze for me and you, because both of those options make a lot of sense in one way or another.
Let me throw this sort of kind of at you here. With Anthony Edwards, as he continues to progress, do you see him being as sort of a player that, let's say everything completely does fall apart and everything just, goes to hell after they make a big move or something? Is he a player like a Rudy Gobert, or I don't want to say LeBron James because he's the greatest of all time, but like a player where no matter how bad your roster is, you're still almost guaranteed like a top 6 seed, like, or heck, 7 to 8. Like, you got a home play in at least, like, pretty much no matter what you do, you've at least got the North Star Anthony Edwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think this season and the back end of last season, made me feel like that is more of a possibility. When Towns got injured, it felt like Ant kind of just put this franchise on his back. And then this season, I felt like everything felt like it was going wrong for the start of the season, and especially. And they were never a bad team because they have Anthony Edwards. You watch the way teams defend him. That's the kind of thing I think that can, and he needs to get better at obviously handling that defense and exploiting that kind of defense. But when teams defend a single player like that, I think that shows that like this player has this gravity not only on the court but in the league standings, that he will win you games. Like I don't think a team with Anthony Edwards, even if unless it goes so horribly wrong that this third timeline is starting games next season. But
Right, right.
if you put a competent team around Anthony Edwards, a team that's not a championship level team, I still think you're winning 45 games. And I know they didn't win that many more this season, but it was a turbulent
But he's
season.
getting better. He's not getting. That's
Yeah.
the thing. Anthony Edwards isn't getting worse from here. Like he's only
And
going to get better.
And I think even more than that, what's been proven is that you can do that in the play. He does that in the playoffs as well. Like it feels like the last two seasons, the Wolves have kind of won these playoff series because Anthony Edwards is really good, and Julius Randle was great this season as well. But it's like he takes you to another level in the regular season where you're going to be a decent team. But then in the playoffs, he gives you a chance to win playoff series because of the player that he is. Like, how many of their playoff series wins in the last? So they've won four series in the last two seasons.
Mm-hmm.
How many were they favored in? Was it maybe one? The Golden State series?
Yeah, not the Suns one, because
Not the
they got
Suns.
killed in the regular season.
I don't think they would have been against the Nuggets.
No,
just because they're coming off a championship, and
Lakers they were not.
Yeah. So this is a guy who has 3 playoff upsets in 2 seasons, and obviously that means there's help from Cat, there's help from Julius, there's help from Rudy. But at the end of the day, your North Star is your North Star, and so I think that Anthony Edwards is a team raiser. But I still think he has room to grow to be like I don't think you need to be Luka Doncic or that heliocentric playmaker to be a guy who raises up your team. I think a lot of it is about vibes, a lot of it is about belief, a lot of it is about who can we give the ball to get something done when we need it, and who can kind of distort a defense constantly and create advantages for other guys in that way. So yeah, I think he is. I mean, I kind of went off topic a little bit there, but I do think that Anthony Edwards is a guy that I think it's smart for Tim Conley to say this is the top of our pyramid for these 3 timelines because we're going to win games with him. Now we just need to find the combination of players around him that work.
Yeah, I like that. Makes sense. We'll see. And again, like regular season, Anthony Edwards isn't always the exact same as you're getting in the playoffs. He might troll against the Wizards and lose a game. So,
yeah.
But as he progresses, matures, gets older, we'll see if that keeps going. But yeah, I mean, I really like it. And as guys like Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley, who are floor raisers, continue to just take this steady decline, Ant's going to have to continue to rise up. And I think guys like Jaden and Nas, I mean, we're just getting into a whole another series of topics here. But I mean, yeah, Jaden and Nas, I think, can take kind of the floor raising role from those guys. So
yeah, and Ant probably needs to become I guess this is what we're talking about, is he needs to become a floor raiser as well. I think right now he's a ceiling raiser.
I agree.
And you have the Conleys and the Goberts and the Jadens who keep that floor concrete and not paper,
Because we've seen with guys like Gobert that they are not a ceiling raiser when it comes playoff time.
Yeah, exactly. And Ant is that ceiling raiser, but I think the very, very best players are both. Like
yes, well, SGA.
You have a high floor. Yeah, you have a high floor with SGA, and obviously you have a super high ceiling as well. So I think that's just consistency. And I think Ant was more consistent this season. I know, like you said, he still trolls sometimes, and we all get frustrated with him when he does. But I think I was actually looking at his game logs the other day, and I was kind of shocked to see like how many massive nights he had against bad teams, because I think we kind of expect them.
Yeah.
We're like, well, obviously you had 40 against the Wizards, but when he has 14 against the Wizards, that's when we're like, what is going on? Right. But I was kind of shocked. There was at least 3 or 4 35-point nights. There was a couple of 40-point nights, and they're floor raising games because they're the games that you need to win, and the Timberwolves frankly haven't won enough of those in the past like 3 seasons.
Yeah, and it helps to have, good team around you too, so they can't just double you, and we'll see where
Yeah.
that goes. But overall, I mean, the era conversation, it is all just centered around Anthony Edwards at the top and go from there, and they're gonna go as far as he takes them. But this is where we're gonna end this first episode of the Worldwide Wolves podcast. Just kind of a draft and a look at the overall era of the Timberwolves after the draft. So, gonna record another thing coming up here shortly and post that to the same channel. But appreciate you guys listening to this episode. Subscribe. We already have 2,600. What? It's an older YouTube channel. Hasn't posted here in 2 years, but yeah, thanks everyone if you are still subscribed. We might actually lose more subscribers than we gain just from people being like, oh yeah. But anyways, appreciate you guys. You're great. Leave a like, leave a comment on your thoughts about all this. And Jake, howls and growls. I forgot to ask what you do over there at the beginning.
We don't. Yeah, I don't love talking about myself anyway. So just howls and growls is the YouTube channel. Obviously, breaking down anything I can think of. After every game during the season, and then we have a draft breakdown there now. Maybe some free agent stuff or some Naz Reid or Julius Rand. Whenever we get some news on someone, I'll try and spin it into a breakdown. And just throughout the offseason, I'm just going to be breaking down things that I think of, things that interest me to do with the Wolves. So, yeah, head over to Howls and Growls and subscribe and help me grow.
Yes, do that. Thanks, everyone. We're going to see where this goes. Appreciate you guys and see you in the next episode.